"You really don't deserve this body," she said, her voice sharp and ice-cold, cutting through the stillness of the Santorini night like a blade. 3 years of my life, built on countless quiet sacrifices and unspoken trade-offs, collapsed in that moment. And suddenly, I saw her for who she really was. No illusions left. I agreed with her, and I erased her from my life. Loving Mira had always felt like standing just a little too close to a bonfire on a freezing night. The flames were mesmerizing, all that light and heat, pulling you in, making you feel alive and electric. You'd get so caught up in the warmth that you didn't notice the occasional ember landing on your skin. They'd sting a bit, tiny burns barely noticeable, but you told yourself it was worth it for a flame that brilliant. I'm an architect. I see meaning in structure, in spaces that serve a purpose. I believe real beauty lies in honest design, in things that stand the test of time. Mira worked in luxury branding. Her world was about polish and perception, perfect surfaces, high-end names, and the way people looked at you when you walked into a room. For a long time, I thought we balanced each other out, that my grounding presence complemented her flash. Turns out, I wasn't her counterpart. I was her foundation, unseen, uncredited, just something solid she could build her shiny image on. And those embers? They started falling more often. I remember one night, a dinner party with our closest friends. I was excited, talking about a community project I'd been working on. A public library for a struggling neighborhood, designed with open space and natural light. A place meant to feel like home, like it belonged to everyone. I was proud, really proud. Mid-sentence, Mira let out this soft, chiming laugh that made the room go quiet. "Oh, Yanni's, always with your noble little side quests," she said, gripping my arm like it was endearing. "It's adorable. Thank God one of us knows how to focus on the money, or we couldn't afford this lovely Bordeaux." There was this pause, a tension in the air. Smiles around the table got tight. My face felt hot, but I forced a smile and muttered something lame like, "Well, someone's got to build the world, and someone's got to pay for the wine." Later that night, I convinced myself she was just proud in her own way, that her teasing was affection in disguise. Mira didn't do soft praise. She liked bold statements, the kind that made comparisons without asking for permission. Then came my birthday. All I really wanted was a night in. Some quiet, a homemade meal maybe, a movie we both liked. Simple. Instead, Mira threw this extravagant party at a sleek, minimalist restaurant that felt more like a showroom than a place to eat. She invited everyone from her work circle, a gallery of curated smiles and designer shoes. I spent the evening making small talk with people whose names evaporated the second they introduced themselves. Smiling, nodding, pretending to be present. When she introduced me to her boss, she draped herself over my shoulder and said, "And this is my Yanni's, my rock, so stable, so reliable." It wasn't meant as praise. Felt more like a label. I wasn't her partner. I was her anchor. The sturdy, predictable dock where she could moor her yacht before sailing off again into whatever storm she found thrilling that week. I shook the man's hand and smiled, but something inside me cracked a little. For our 3rd anniversary, I decided to go big. I wanted to do something that would pull us out of our routine, strip away all the noise, and bring us back to who we used to be. I spent weeks researching, digging through travel blogs and architecture sites to find the perfect spot. And when I found it, I went all in. I dipped deep into my savings to plan a 10-day escape to Santorini, Greece. My hope? That we could leave behind her world of luxury campaigns and my world of floor plans. That we could get lost together in narrow whitewashed alleys and that brilliant blue Aegean sky. I saw it as a reset, a reminder that what we had was real once. The island was stunning, almost unreal in its beauty, but it ended up just being a new stage for an old performance. The small jabs didn't stop, they just picked up a Mediterranean flavor. The hotel I chose, one I'd fallen in love with online, was carved into the cliffside. It had this beautiful hand-painted blue door and a private terrace that smelled of jasmine in the warm breeze. To me, it was perfect. Real. Greek. To Mira, it was a design flaw waiting to be fixed. "It's cute, Yanni's," she said, lightly running her fingers across a rustic chair. "But it's no Four Seasons. The vibe's a bit effortful, don't you think?" She was already on her phone, probably checking how many stars it had on some luxury travel site, turning my heartfelt surprise into a score out of 5. Every meal felt like a silent job evaluation. She'd size me up against strangers at nearby tables, always with that faint air of comparison. She'd point at a man's watch, lift her wine glass, and say things like, "Now that's a Patek Philippe. That says something. He knows who he is." She didn't have to spell it out. The meaning was there, hanging in the air like smoke. My watch, a simple Timex my dad gave me before he passed, wasn't stylish. It was practical, reliable. One afternoon by the pool, she watched a muscular guy step out of the water. He looked like he walked out of a fitness ad. "He really takes care of himself," she said, almost absently, eyes moving from him to me, lounging with a book on my chest. It wasn't an insult, not outright, just another slow leak in my confidence. But the biggest thorn? The camera. Sunsets in Santorini are magic. Golden light spilling across the cliffs. But for Mira, it wasn't a shared moment. It was her golden hour, her time to shine. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her photographer. "Lower, Yen. I need the light to hit my jawline just right," she'd say, posing. "No, this one's too harsh. Let's try over there. Wait, a cloud's coming. Can you hold off till it passes?" Meanwhile, I'd be sweating, crouching, adjusting, snapping shots, trying to meet the image she saw in her head. She'd stay still, statuesque, waiting to be immortalized. If I didn't nail the shot, it wasn't just a bad photo, it was a betrayal. Proof that I couldn't even capture her properly. I kept swallowing the frustration, layering it with excuses. She's in branding. She sees beauty for a living. She holds herself to high standards, that's all. She's not trying to hurt me. I became her interpreter, always translating her barbed remarks into softer meanings I could live with. We walked hand in hand through one of the most romantic places on earth, but I didn't feel like a man in love. I felt like her travel coordinator, her photographer, her financier, and slowly, the vision I'd built for this trip, that hope of rekindling what we had, started to slip away, piece by piece. Still, I tried to deny it, pretend I didn't see it happening. On our last night, I made one final push, one more attempt to find the version of us that had once worked. I'd booked a quiet dinner at a tiny family-run taverna perched at the highest point in OIA. Just 4 tables on a little terrace, looking out over the vast, dark sea. It was the kind of place you don't stumble upon. You seek it out. Intimate, quiet, perfect. I wanted to talk, really talk, not fight, not deflect. I picked up my glass of wine, gave it a little swirl and said, "This project I've been working on, it's been eating me alive. We're behind, over budget, and the client's breathing down my neck. I feel like I'm holding up the entire firm." I looked at her, hoping for a crack in her expression, some flicker of empathy. A simple, "That sounds rough," or "Tell me more." Mira didn't even lift her eyes from her phone. Her thumb kept moving in this slow, steady rhythm, scrolling through her Instagram feed like she was in a trance. "That's too bad," she muttered, eyes fixed on a picture of some rival brand's new handbag. That offhand response hurt more than if she'd flat out insulted me. "Mira, did you even hear what I said?" I asked, my voice tightening, sharper than I meant it to be. That finally got her attention. With a soft, deliberate click, she placed her phone face down on the table, like a queen granting me 5 minutes of court time. "Yes, Yanis, I heard you," she said, letting out a theatrical sigh. "Work is stressful. Welcome to being an adult." "That's not what I'm saying," I replied, trying to keep myself steady as the frustration crept up my spine. "I'm trying to open up here. I need you to listen. Sometimes it feels like I'm just the guy who pays the bills and fixes the Wi-Fi." She exhaled hard through her nose, the way people do when they're tired of repeating themselves. "Oh God, here it comes. The 'you don't appreciate me' monologue," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Do we really have to do this now? We're in Santorini, for God's sake. Can't you just enjoy it?" "This is it, Mira," I said, my voice rising before I could stop it. "This is the moment. This is our life. Not the carefully curated pictures. Not the filters or the scenery. Just us. And I'm tired. I'm so tired of trying to measure up to some invisible standard you never explain." Something inside me had begun to splinter. 3 years of biting my tongue and pushing my feelings aside. It was all beginning to crack. "I just want to know you see me," I said, my voice quieter now, more raw. "Do you even love me? And if you do, what exactly is it you love?" The question floated there between us, suspended in the stillness. She stared at me for a long beat, Her expression was unreadable, like she was calculating something. Then her face shifted, not with anger, but with something colder, clinical. She looked at me like she was evaluating a failed marketing campaign, one she couldn't salvage, no matter how many touch-ups or slogans she applied. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. "Let's be real, Yannis," she said, lowering her voice like she was sharing something scandalous. "You're an average architect with a forgettable personality. What exactly do you think you deserve?" She leaned closer, her eyes gleaming in the soft candlelight. "You don't deserve my time. You don't deserve this view." She let the silence stretch for dramatic effect, then delivered the final blow. "And you certainly don't deserve my body." Silence followed, not the kind filled with tension or sadness. This was a silence that felt final, absolute, like a fuse had blown and the power just cut out. Something inside me flipped. 3 years of justifications, of trying to make sense of every cold glance and cruel comment, of rewriting her words into something I could live with, all of that collapsed in a heartbeat. And just like that, everything went still. Her words didn't linger or echo in my head. They didn't burn. They just landed like a coffin lid slamming shut. All the pain I'd been carrying, the little humiliations, the cutting jokes in front of friends, the smirks that made me feel small, it didn't bubble up. It vanished. In its place came something unexpected. Calm. A vast, cool clarity. For the first time, I saw her without the filters. Not the woman I'd fallen in love with. Not the woman I kept hoping she'd become. Just Mira unedited. I saw the fear behind her arrogance. The fragile self-worth that needed to knock me down so she could feel taller. The glittering surface that masked an emptiness she couldn't bear to face. The bonfire had burned out. There was no warmth left, and I realized I wasn't afraid of the cold anymore. She was watching me closely now, waiting for a reaction. A storm, maybe. She was expecting tears, yelling, drama. The usual explosion that would end, as always, with me apologizing for making her say hurtful things. She was ready for that script. Instead, I just looked at her. Calm. Steady. Then I nodded. Slowly. Deliberately. "You're right," I said. My voice was low and even. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. Mira blinked. This wasn't in the playbook. This wasn't how I was supposed to respond. "What?" she asked, confusion creeping into her voice. "I said you're right," I repeated, meeting her gaze. "I agree." We walked back to the hotel in silence. She kept sneaking glances at me, trying to read me, waiting for me to crack. Waiting for the explosion. But the storm had already passed. There was no more dam to break. Just a quiet current, carrying me somewhere I hadn't let myself go before. Back in the room, the carefully staged romance. The plush pillows, the scented candles, the soft lighting. All of it felt hollow, like props on a set where the actors had already gone home. Mira jumped into her usual post-fight routine, the same old dance of dodging blame while generously offering forgiveness. "Yannis," she said, her tone already shifting. "You pushed me tonight. You know I say things I don't mean when I feel cornered. You just ruined such a beautiful evening." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked over to the small desk, plugged in my phone, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed cool blue against my face. She watched me, unsure now, her voice starting to waver. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. My hands moved steadily, methodically. I opened my cloud drive. I navigated to the folder I'd labeled A and Y. Inside it, a subfolder titled simply, Her. 3 years of photos lived there, vacations, selfies, dinners, kisses, hundreds of frozen smiles. I hovered over the folder, selected it, and clicked, delete permanently. That folder also held the intimate pictures she'd once sent me. The ones she called art. The ones she made me swear I'd protect. That she told me were a gift, a privilege. Another click. A small prompt appeared. "Are you sure you want to permanently delete these items?" "Yes." I was. "Elias, stop it. What the hell do you think you're doing?" She snapped, her voice climbing, tinged with something I hadn't heard from her before. Panic. I ignored her. Next, I opened my social media accounts. One by one, I untagged her from every post, every check-in, every shared memory. Then I updated my relationship status. "In a relationship," became blank. I went through each photo. Us in Paris, grinning in vineyards, posing at her company gala, and deleted them. One by one. Gone. Click. Gone. Click. Gone. Her panic turned sharp and hot. This is childish. You're being so dramatic. Still, I didn't look up. I opened my banking app. We weren't fully financially entangled, but enough to make it matter. Every month, I covered the rent for her sleek little apartment. A gift. I had called it back then. Generous? Maybe. Naive? Definitely. It was set up as an automatic transfer. I found the scheduled payment. Cancelled it. She also had access to one of my credit cards, the one for emergencies. Though somehow those emergencies always looked suspiciously like designer heels and last-minute spa weekends. I logged in, found her profile, and with a few quiet clicks, deactivated her card. Effective immediately. Only when every last digital and financial string had been cut did I finally close the laptop. Then I turned to her. Her expression was something between shock and fury, like a queen realizing her throne had vanished. The power she used to carry in every room, effortless, unspoken, was gone. "Have you completely lost your mind?" she screamed. I shook my head, voice calm as ever. "No," I said. "I think I've finally found it." I started packing. No drama, no flurry of movement, just a quiet, focused kind of efficiency. Folding shirts, zipping up toiletries. Each item I put into the suitcase felt like a piece of myself I was pulling back from her orbit. Mira started pacing, the rage fading fast, replaced by something else. Something brittle, uncertain. This version of me, the calm, deliberate one, she didn't know how to handle him. This wasn't the role I was supposed to play. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't begging. I was just leaving, and that scared her. "You can't do this," she said, her voice cracking. "After everything, 3 years. You're going to throw it all away because of one stupid sentence?" I zipped up the suitcase, stood tall, and looked at her. "No, Mira," I said softly. "It's not about the sentence. It's about the truth underneath it." Then I walked out of that room. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently behind me, like a punctuation mark at the end of a long, overdue sentence. Down the stone path I went, suitcase wheels humming over the cobblestones. The village was quiet, still, and for the first time in years, I felt the same way inside. I found a small, no-frills hotel on the far side of the island. Checked in. Lay down on the bed in a clean, anonymous room. No grief, no spinning thoughts, no tears, just silence. Not the aching kind, but the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. But I know myself. I knew that somewhere between 3 and 5 a.m., the self-doubt might creep in, wearing all its old disguises. So I got ahead of it. I picked up my phone and called Luca. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy. "Elias? It's the middle of the night. You okay?" I didn't cry, didn't shout. Just calmly told him what had happened at dinner, from my opening words to her final blow. "She told me I didn't deserve her body," I said. There was silence on the other end, heavy, but not surprised. I could picture him rubbing his face, sitting up, letting it sink in. Then came a long, slow exhale. "Finally," he said, voice firm but full of compassion. "Elias, thank God. We've all been waiting for you to see it, man. She was never worthy of you, not even close. What you did, that was strength. That was the most self-respecting thing you've done in years." His words hit different. It wasn't just support. It was clarity, like someone had wiped the fog off the mirror and let me see myself again. That last sliver of doubt, the little voice whispering, was I being too sensitive? Did I go too far? Was gone. Luca didn't just validate me. He anchored me, and with that I knew this wasn't destruction. This was escape. The next morning the contrast was stark. I felt light, like I'd stepped out of a heavy, soaking coat I'd been wearing for too long. Meanwhile, Mira? She moved like a shadow, tense, desperate, and weighed down by something I had finally let go of. We didn't speak as we waited at the ferry dock. Didn't say a word on the flight to Athens. But at the airport, standing at the gate for our separate flights, she finally cracked. Her perfect mask was gone. Mascara smudged, cheeks streaked with tears, lips trembling. "Elias, please," she whispered, reaching for my hand. I didn't yank it away, but I didn't hold it either. "I'm sorry," she said. "It was a horrible, stupid thing to say. We were fighting. That's all. We can fix this." I looked at her, and for the first time what I felt wasn't love or anger. It was pity. Not cruel or smug. Just the quiet realization that she was no longer part of my story. The thing is, I said gently, it's not about what you said. It's about how you looked when you said it. That certainty in your face. I paused, then added, you weren't trying to hurt me. You were showing me what you really believe. I slipped my hand out of hers. I'm not negotiating. I'm informing. We're done. Back in my apartment that night, the quiet felt different. It didn't feel empty. Felt peaceful. Later, I scrolled through the photos on my phone, looking for one last image from Santorini. It wasn't of Mira. It was a picture I'd taken that morning, from the balcony of the little hotel. The sky and the sea, both endless, both blue, both free. I posted it to my feed, the first thing I'd shared in months that wasn't about us. Just me. The caption was simple. Freedom begins when you delete a narcissist from your life. It didn't take long. Comments and likes started rolling in. Friends, mutual friends, even people I barely knew, all showing support. Then the buzzing began. Mira. A text. Then another. Then a call. I watched her name flash across the screen, then quietly blocked her number. Next came the emails. Flooding in, wild swings between apologies, guilt trips, and bargaining. I set up a filter and sent them straight to the trash. It wasn't just digital boundaries I was building. It was a firewall for my own soul. The silence she once filled with her presence. Her voice, her judgments, her endless demands, had become a space for me to breathe again. And in that space, something beautiful happened. I thrived. My work took off. The community library project, the one she mocked, ended up winning a regional design award. I was focused, clear-headed, happy. Not performatively happy. Not Instagram story happy, but deeply, quietly happy. A few months later, I ran into Nina, a mutual friend, at an architecture exhibit. After we exchanged the usual small talk, she leaned in with a look. Just so you know, she said quietly, Myra's not doing great. Since the rent stopped magically appearing, she had to move into a tiny studio across town. Your post got around. People started seeing her differently. Nina paused, then added, she's trying to spin this whole story about how you had some kind of breakdown, but nobody's buying it. I nodded, letting her words settle. And to my surprise, I felt nothing. No smug satisfaction. No bitterness. Just indifference. Like hearing about a stranger from a chapter I'd already closed. That night, Luca and I met up to celebrate the award. We were sitting at a quiet bar, sketching a ridiculous idea for a floating house on a napkin, laughing harder than we had in years. At one point, I caught my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. I looked different. That guarded, drained expression I used to carry like armor, gone. In its place was a man who looked grounded, peaceful, fully himself. That night in Santorini, I hadn't just deleted photos. I hadn't just canceled cards or cleared out shared folders. I had deleted the version of me who tolerated being diminished. I had deleted the man who constantly rewrote insults into compliments. I had walked away from the fire that once kept me warm. And in the cool, clear air that followed, I finally started building a life of my own design.